up, everybody? Welcome in. Jump to Start Racing podcast. I'm here with two of my closest friends. Hello, Ruben. How are you doing?
What's going on, guys? Wow. Wow.
Yhancy, how are you doing?
I lost my voice.
Yeah. Yhancy had too much excitement this weekend.
Oh, Ferrari's back, baby. I can't even say that right. I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
I can't even.
That's what we expected. High. The normal dry high. But now you're
I
awake.
can't, bro. I'm just too freaking excited. This is.
Okay. Don't break the chair now, Jens.
I'm trying not to.
Okay.
I might. If I break the table, it's not my fault.
Gotcha.
I blame it on Charlie.
So, weekend number 1 is in the books. Very exciting. Race itself. Very exciting weekend as we introduce new regulations for the cars, new tires, new driver lineups. And then all of a sudden, the season seems a lot more promising than even the last season. Seems like we're going to have a great season. Before we get into that, though, I want to make sure that if you guys have watched more than one video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, clang that bell. Leave a comment on our YouTube channel, Jump to Start Racing Podcast. We're on many, I'm not even going to go through it, many podcast platforms, Jump to Start Racing Podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at Jump to Start F1. Okay, so getting into it. Well, number 1, Ruben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday after a great race, great weekend overall. Yes, how are you?
I'm great.
Beyond
How was your weekend, Jens?
Beyond great.
Beyond great. Ferrari's on top, man. Ferrari's back.
Okay.
Ferrari's back.
Okay.
Haters.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, haters. It's all y'all haters.
All right. Before we get into the race itself and the race weekend itself, let's talk a little bit about some news. We have it. It's happening again. One of the best things that happens, or has started to happen, or has happened recently. Hulking back. He's back. Sebastian Vettel, another unfortunate case of COVID within F1 following the situation with Daniel Ricciardo, who happened to come back in time for the race, happened to get better. So Sebastian Vettel, COVID positive. They needed a driver, so they had Nico Hülkenberg as a reserve driver, who literally said that I was in bed when they called me. You know, the morning that they called me, I was in bed, jumped out, hopped on my flight, dropped my tres leches cake, was able to rejoin the team, but he didn't get to do any testing and just needed a couple of warm-up laps in practice to be able to get the hang of it. We'll talk about how he did, but is this something that we can expect is going to continue to happen?
I would say so. This is just the way it is, and obviously we're getting to the tail end of this pandemic. But yeah, even if we don't worry so much about drivers getting overly sick where they got to be hospitalized or anything, but what we do worry is that they can be infectious, and you don't. And once they're infectious, you don't want anybody else to be infected, because then you start postponing races and sessions and things like that. But I mean, Formula One has done a great job overall as far as containing any threats, as far as people getting infected. And, any driver who has had COVID has recovered and bounced back and came back. And, yeah, it's going to happen. But, like I said, anytime it does happen, it doesn't affect anything. It's not like we cancel the entire race or anything like that, like what happened in Australia when the pandemic started. So, but it was good to see Nico back. Mm-hmm. Good to see him.
Welcome back.
High five, Kevin Magnussen.
I was saving that one.
And he did decent considering these are brand new cars. He probably would have done better if it was the older car, because that's what he was used to. But
Yeah.
So no testing, literally not even. I don't even think he did. I don't think he even did like a simulator run.
No, he was in bed. He didn't do that.
So he did well. Good for him.
Any thoughts, Ruben?
No, just a speedy recovery for Seb, and he's gonna come back.
He's probably be back for Saudi.
Yeah.
Arabia, right?
Hopefully it goes well.
No, they don't know yet. Last I read it, they don't know if he's gonna be ready because it's a quick turnaround. So we might see Hülkenberg back in the seat, but it just depends on if he tests positive or not. But Aston Martin is not giving any definitive answers as to.
Yeah,
who's
they're waiting for the
gonna
last
be in
minute to
car.
see if they're able to do it.
Yeah.
For him to make it through on a negative status and hey, enjoy your couple of days off, Seb, and feel better.
That actually reminds me, in Drive to Survive, they actually made it a pretty good point where I think it was in Silverstone, where Hamilton, obviously he won that race, and then he was looking at the crowd, and he was so careful because he wanted to win the championship. He was like, man, I don't know if I want to go into the crowd or if I want to go over there, shake people's hands and stuff like that.
There's a lot of people there.
Right, right. And we know he had long COVID. We know that, obviously he didn't want to miss any races. That's going to be something that might be in the back of the minds of the drivers again this year.
No, and especially Hamilton, he's in the middle of a championship fight. Well, we're talking about last season. He was in the middle of a championship fight. If he does miss a race, it's a big.
It would have been a big hit.
It would have been a big hit in the championship. So, and as we know, that would have jeopardized the championship chances, considering that it went to the last race.
He did also make like a point, like, hey, people, make sure you keep your mask on. He did say, like, come out on the.
He did say that in the. I remember him saying that
thing.
in the post race interviews too. After he won at Silverstone.
Yeah. It could have changed the constructors championship, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other piece of news that we wanted to talk about before jumping into the race weekend was, and hindsight being 2020, man, this is not looking like a good deal. But McLaren and Google, they signed a sponsorship deal ahead of the 2022 Formula One season, a 5-year deal. I forget what the numbers were.
They didn't give any numbers.
That's why I forgot.
The financial was on the screen.
Yeah.
So it's a deal where McLaren will be using Google and Android platforms. They didn't really specify to do exactly what, but we saw last week, what was it, Oracle? Right?
Oracle, yeah.
Oracle and Red Bull signed a deal for essentially computational fluid dynamics and just kind of using the Oracle platform to run a lot of their calculations.
Like cloud computing and things like that. Because obviously the teams are always hooked up to home base, but wherever their home base is, be it Italy, be it so most of the teams are based out of the UK, but they use those platforms to communicate with each other. So that's always going to be a need for F1 teams, and I'm assuming that they're going to have a similar deal to. It's going to be a similar partnership with Google and McLaren.
The rims look nice.
Yeah, they were supposed to have the Google decal on the rims.
Yeah.
The
Google Chrome. The Chrome logo.
Red, blue, and orange or whatever.
Yeah, it was buffering.
Yeah, the car spent a weekend buffering. As the Chrome logo went over and over and over, it kept buffering.
Guys, you guys are really freaking cruel. Really cruel.
Wow.
So on that note, let's jump into it. The race weekend review.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
Oh, I missed
20 years ago, Niki Lauda. No. All right, I'll save it because you guys already heard it from me.
I think you need to say it
With the accent. Yes. That's
No,
what we
it
missed.
took me a whole season to memorize.
But then,
I had to
so
do
the
it the
accent should
last
be easier now.
Did
Wow.
not take you an entire season.
What are you guys gonna do? Actually, that's my. It's
go-
always me like having.
We're going to clap for you.
We'll challenge.
We're going to clap for him.
Okay,
we're-
I'll make
we're-
sure to challenge you guys.
We're waiting for the challenge.
We'll clap for him.
All right, so
Challenge.
the race weekend. It's the first time we really see these new cars in a competitive environment up against each other. What are your thoughts on the cars themselves, the tires, in general, just the changes to the overall car? Remember, it's new aerodynamic regulations. The engine is moving towards homologation.
Yeah, and I think it's.
I'm not cursing at you guys.
I was wondering, what word is that? Dude? Like, where did you get that from?
Homologation, Ruben.
Is what? Not humiliating.
Homologation is basically a freeze. They build the engines and then they freeze them, and that is going to be used for the rest of the. Actually, it's up until 2025 is when the rule.
Why didn't he
rules
just
gonna
put like an
change.
engine freeze, like that's been said before? Why he got to throw the loan words at me?
Because not everybody's as. I'm not even going to say that.
Gotcha.
To you,
Okay, thank you. Thank
Not
you.
everybody's a dope now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
had to put it out there.
Yeah, but
Sorry, yes.
no, but go ahead. How you feel about the new cars?
The new cars is cool to see pretty much all the different perspectives that pretty much all the teams went. Like, for example, I was telling you yesterday at the bar that I still don't know. I haven't looked into like what year, but the Ferrari, because of having such like its big belly, you could say, on the
Those were
side
the
pods that look humongous.
Early 90s.
The early 90s, it looked like when you look at the shot from above,
Mhm.
and because of the color, it looks like the early '90s or late '80s Ferrari, where it had,
Right.
Obviously because of the bigger rims, also the rear tires being so wide.
Mhm.
When you look at the shot from the top, it looks similar to like an old school Ferrari,
Mhm.
and
It
all
has
this-
that same color, red too.
yes, it's like a deep blood red. You could say.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And also I would say that the rims also when you get that shot from when the drivers are
The large tires.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean the large tires and when you get that shot from I guess the helmet cam you could say we got a lot of that from Ferrari this week. How limited is the visibility also come into with the shark fins. I would say the shark fins because the little I guess I don't know how you name that.
Which one?
I would say it's the grates for the car to breathe because of the engine to breathe because the side parts.
Oh, you're talking about the side. Oh, but you're talking about the
Like the louvers.
they look like shark fin. No, they look like shark gills. I would say.
That's a perfect word. Yeah.
Yeah, because a shark fin is usually the thing.
Yeah,
in the back.
that's how no. This is the gills. There you go.
Yeah, it's the vents. They're basically vents.
Yeah, it's a vent, yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty much every car has this. Obviously Mercedes that one. I guess.
Right.
Mercedes has some form of it, but it's not as big. I think the ones that have them the biggest are for the Ferraris. The Ferraris look the coolest because they just
Yes.
like that contour.
Also your team,
Ask
your
them-
team too. That's why.
Yeah, my team. Tifosi, baby. What's up?
No, so I agree with Ruben. The different interpretations of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that not everybody has figured it out, and it's going to take a while for everybody to kind of figure it out. The Ferrari concept seems to be the closest to figuring it out, just based on this past weekend. It's interesting how close to the Formula E cars they look to me. I don't know. It's just kind of the shape of it. I like the rear wing. I wonder when we get so Bahrain is kind of like a low drag setup type because there's very long straights and there's that sector 2 that's a little twisty, but it's not really that much. I'm curious to see what they're gonna look like come like Hungary and come Singapore, like the real low Monaco, the real low drag setups, and how much of a variation we can really get within the rule set. But other than that, I thought that it was very pleasantly surprising to see how closely the cars could follow. We saw what was it, like the first 10 laps, the cars were so bunched up. It was exciting for us to see. They didn't get lost behind each other as far as like sector 2 where the dirty air could really mess you up. So it was I thought it was a great so far. I thought it was an improvement based on what we saw this weekend.
Yeah, it looked a lot better. I mean,
How much they were pushing at the beginning, like so close to each other.
Yeah.
Too.
It just looked a lot better. I mean, obviously the rear wing, since it doesn't have, it's curved at the ends instead of having that straight point, so you don't have a lot of dirty air coming off of that, and that was the whole point. And obviously the point, part of that is also so the air goes up instead of straight to the back, so the cars can like slip into the back, and you saw that in the opening laps. That they were able to at least try and overtake when they're close together and closely follow. Again, it's only one race,
Right.
but it was very positive, and the fact that we were able to get that battle at the front with Max and Leclerc
For several laps.
for several laps, that's something that you kind of saw it sometimes last season, but you didn't see it that much. You would never. I don't think did we ever get a chance to see like 3 or 4 laps where
Yes.
where Max and Lewis were
No.
battling each other like that.
So no on that, but yes, we saw the Red Bull car versus Lewis, which we saw Sergio Perez at the end of the season
Yes.
against Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, yeah, but at that point they weren't I mean, but that's the whole thing. It's like,
But not as close as we saw yesterday.
the caveat was that you knew that if you were to follow that closely last season, you're losing out on tires,
Everything.
you're losing out on everything. Not so much in this case. You were still able to have something to
Right.
fight back later.
Yeah, like pretty much that's what, in that aspect, what I saw from the race yesterday is that the drivers were not, they don't have to be as quick to give up on either the position or the fighting because, hey, we still bunch up. I'm going to lose my wheel, I'm going to lose my tires. I'm not going to have the arrow to keep up with this. But now, because the dirty air is gone now, we're able to stay closer without jeopardizing my long-term ability of the race. Past obviously the
Right.
race that you normally take to overtake somebody.
The only thing that was a little weird to me, and obviously maybe it's just the race, but I remember it being a little more powerful, was I didn't think that the DRS was that powerful. So we saw like the Max really closing the gap and overtaking Leclerc at the end. But then it was later revealed that Leclerc was opening the door for him. He was kind of braking earlier. He was charging his battery to use in the next portion. So that
He was
could
letting him actually pass him so
Right.
he can get the DRS on the next.
Right. So
corner.
my question was, like, I just didn't see the DRS as powerful
as it usually
as it
is.
was before, especially on such
Long straight.
as two really long straights and then one shorter one.
I think when you come to a conclusion, something like that is going to be over a season to see how it all reacts. Obviously, again, it's the first race. It's all positive, to be honest with you. But we'll see how everything goes. Eventually, what they want to do is they do want to get rid of the DRS.
Gotcha.
And I think they should get rid of the DRS because you kind of want to go back to that old school racing where the racing car by itself and the driver by himself can overtake without the aid of an extra drag, so everything could be even.
But you're still gonna have almost a push to pass with the battery.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's the thing. If you have a push to pass with the battery, both drivers can deploy that. Here, when only the driver and from behind can deploy the DRS.
Yeah.
So basically, it leaves that the driver in front is a sitting duck. So I mean, again, they're leaving it this year to see how they're gonna have to study it. I mean, the whole point of the DRS was that you couldn't follow closely through corners. So to make up that time that you couldn't follow through corners, the car behind was able to make up that time in the straights. That was the whole point of the DRS. Now, if you're able to start following through corners closely, which these cars are meant to be, then and you can see that you can make up time through the corners if you're behind, then yeah, you don't need an extra. The car on the back doesn't need an extra advantage of less drag to pass them on a straight, and that's the whole goal. That's what they eventually want to get to. So we'll see. But that previous car, when you weren't able to follow at all, especially through the corners.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just like
yeah,
how the cars at the beginning of the race were so close together. Because normally, like after the first turn, you will get just a train.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kept going, meaning even at one point there was still like three wide trying to,
Yeah.
shuffle with each other.
That was awesome.
To have traveled like that as the first race, it was dope, man.
yeah, and we were seeing fights at the back, all
Yeah.
up and down the grid. So
Non-stop too, like they were going back and forth at each other.
it almost, I mean, it wasn't as close as an Indy car, because Indy cars, when you see an Indy car race, they're able to stay close throughout the entire race. Here you saw that more of a spacing out, but that's just due
Because
to
of pace.
the cars, and you're gonna get that a lot in Formula One anyways. But if there's a car that's behind and it's on similar pace to a car in the front, if you can get close and pass, that'll be awesome. And I think, like I said, it was a positive step, and hopefully it keeps up throughout the season.
So, moving on from there, qualifying was really our first kind of whiff of what we're gonna get here. Surprising results, to say the least, right? We had, and I'm gonna ask you to save it for the race results.
Okay,
So we had Charles Leclerc,
I'm ready to go.
pole position, Max Verstappen second, Carlos Sainz in third, Sergio Perez fourth, Lewis Hamilton fifth, and then his teammate Valtteri Bottas sixth.
Ex-teammate.
Ex-teammate, Kevin Magnussen seventh. What'd you guys think of qualifying?
Qualifying was fun.
It was fun.
Qualifying was great.
So I think I said it at the bar when we were together on Sunday. I personally believe that Charles Leclerc is one of, if not the best qualifiers on the grid right now. And if the Ferrari car is up to spec, I could easily see him taking 15 poles.
Yeah.
Am I crazy for saying that?
No, because he led. I think in 2019.
Yeah, with a cheating engine, but yeah.
I'm not.
No?
I'm not even gonna say what I'm thinking about it. But
You're thinking that I'm right, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
okay.
What's your thought?
No, I'm just.
Oh, you still
trying not
buffering? McLaren, you buffering?
trying to stay positive and happy.
Gotcha. No shade.
Stoicism on this.
Yeah, with the result of this weekend all across the board from for my team, Ferrari, the red team, the winningest team in F1 history.
Oh my God.
But you saw it when Leclerc, and I've said this to you throughout the years, to both of you guys throughout the year, when Leclerc has the car where he can compete for wins and poles, he brings it home. I think he got either 10 or 11 pole positions that season. I don't know if it was either 10 or 11, but he led.
19?
Yeah, 2019. He led the grid in pole positions, got 2 wins. And you already saw it back then that he was right up there in with the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel when he was in his prime. That he can win a championship if he's given the right car. And we have one race so far this season, and he's proven that if you give him a car that can compete, he'll bring it home. He obviously got pole position, fastest lap, won the race. He won everything this weekend. He didn't put a foot wrong.
What do they call that? There's a name for that.
I don't know. I forgot. I know there is a name for that.
He didn't get the fastest laps on
Yes,
all
he
the
did.
on all the practices.
No.
No, I'm talking about fastest lap
On
in
the
the
race.
race.
Grand Slam, is it?
I don't know. But, I mean, he was the star of the weekend.
So look, I think that to me, and I say it in jest, but also not in jest. It's like Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire. Yeah, they set a record, but there was a questionability about it, right? And in all fairness,
You're
look,
talking about 2019.
I'm talking about 2019.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point at the end of the day, right? Because all of a sudden their pace dropped off, whatever.
Yeah. A ton.
But last year, he was still, he still had gotten he got the pole in Monaco. I think he had gotten another one, or he
2 pole positions.
exactly,
last year.
and that wasn't the dominant car at the time. It was
Yeah.
actually the 4th best car.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, it got better as the
Mhm.
season went on, and he still got 2 poles. So to me, it's like, this guy, he has an innate talent to be able to just pull a lap out of his booty, his bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and just make it work. And I'm excited to give him a fair shake and see what happens when he has a top 3 car. Let's put it
All right, but here's what I'm gonna.
Meaning a better package.
right.
Like a better.
Here's the thing, because if you're comparing steroid use with Barry Bonds, which
Well,
is something that you put in your body, and compared to if you're giving a car, a piece of machinery to drive, regardless if it's legal or not legal, and it can compete with the top teams, because Ferrari at that point wasn't running away with the championship either. It was competing at certain tracks.
So now you're saying it was a cork bat?
Huh?
Okay.
No, it wasn't not a cork bat. What I'm saying is that if you're giving the machinery to win, he brings it home. That's all it is. How many times have we
I
seen
guess
drivers?
that makes sense what you just said.
Yeah, how many times have we seen drivers in decent cars and they don't bring it home? Seen it plenty of times, and he does.
You're right. I mean, we had it last year in both Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, we'll continue to talk about this, but Charles Leclerc, pole position, Max Verstappen, 2nd place in qualifying, front row start. Do we see the Red Bull, I don't want to say dominance continue, but do we see the Red Bull consistency of staying at the top of the pack continue this year? Assuming they sort out their issues.
Yeah.
with-
So it will be, of course. Obviously, from qualifying, what I got I was happy for Ferrari because they after what that happened with the cheating engine, they got penalized or whatever. They got hindered.
Mm-hmm.
So now they made a huge comeback for this. I got a glimpse. I'm still thinking if they're cheating again because now they got to prove the credibility. And it wouldn't surprise me if they started finding something on it just so they could get to the bottom of.
It'll come out.
Yeah, it will.
It'll come out, but that doesn't mean. But then you could say that Red Bull was cheating last year. They all of a sudden had a good engine, right? So anytime anybody comes up to the top, you're gonna accuse them of cheating.
No, I think that number one, that there was something like we have to acknowledge that there was something there. You know?
Yeah.
No,
Like-
absolutely.
Like, I
I'm
get
not
that you're a
denying
fan,
it.
but like there really was something there that
I'm-
they squashed. They made a deal with the FIA,
Yeah.
and they were like,
I'm
"Oh,
not-
let's make this go
and-
away."
I'm not denying it. I'm
Oh,
not.
yeah.
I'm not denying.
Don't worry about
that.
it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
fine.
not denying that. But the thing is that you can't just put
But I just-
everybody's success to a cheating engine.
No, I just put my point on it. We saw that, and that's what happened because after they got investigated, they dropped so much. Now they're or something because of a new regulation. They're at the top. Okay, fine. Congratulations to them.
This is gonna be
But-
a great year.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
but
show both of
that's
them
the
off.
reason why I'm trying to say that point. Congratulations to them, but we cannot forget it brought me back to 2019 when when they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah,
But,
but they weren't
I
even
can't
fastest
wait.
in the speed trap this
They weren't.
this
No.
race. Oh.
But I cannot wait for Carlos Sainz to have a legit qualifying lap. He had a horrible qualifying lap, and that's the reason why he was in third. So I'm pretty sure it would have been a Ferrari 1-2. And remember, last year, not only with the points, but Carlos Sainz was there as well.
This is weird because I asked about Max.
No, because Max. But no,
Well, like, yo, what's
I
going
know,
on?
but okay, you asked, but Max. I mean, are we doubting that Max is going to be qualified, on top if he has the pack?
No,
He's gonna
I
push.
feel like we also saw Sergio Perez put in a good lap too.
Yeah,
I felt like that was one of his best qualifyings. And then
They-
obviously,
Red Bull needs to get on top of the issues. They have Max is driving at another level. Max is is driving at the level that Lewis has been the past 8 years. And honestly, Max looked unbeatable up until that point. I mean, but Leclerc just came through. He beat him fair and square. But Max was, I saw at one point I thought Max was gonna come out with the win, but he cooked his tires.
the qualifying pole position.
Oh, pole position. Yeah, I thought he was gonna come out with the pole position.
because we're expecting that.
Huh?
We're not expecting Ferrari to be on top. We're expecting for Max to be on top.
Ferrari had a good preseason.
No, but I'm saying this is the first race. What we were seeing, from where Ferrari's coming from, regardless of whatever pace they were showing, we were not expecting for them to
Correct.
take pole.
Correct.
Ferrari.
I was not.
To expect them to take pole, I didn't think so.
No. I thought
Even our
because-
predictions didn't show
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, Yhancy.
Were there any surprises?
We got a maybe at least.
Yeah. Were there any surprises as far as the pace goes? I mean, number one has to be Mercedes.
man. Damn.
Like it's unbelievable to see how much that they had fallen off. Lewis Hamilton, I think we said qualified. Hold on.
Fifth.
One second.
You know what? I
yeah, he
think
qualified fifth.
I think that I watched all of testing, and I saw how those cars were running, and you didn't Wellington, you didn't believe me that you really thought the Mercedes were sandbagging.
Because it's every
It's
year.
every time they do it.
literally every
I
year.
understand that, but
Because the sandbagging is what I
Yeah,
watch
but-
testing.
wait. Let me finish, okay? Because I watched testing, and I've seen when the Mercedes is saying, "Oh, we're not that quick," and you see that car on track, and it's like, yeah, this car, they're sandbagging. But if you saw them in testing, you saw how that car was running. It wasn't running like a Mercedes. It wasn't on rails. It was struggling through the corners. It was definitely struggling on the straights. And this is when, the televised testing in Bahrain. And like this car is the way the Ferraris and the Red Bulls were running, especially when the Red Bulls put on that update in the last day. It was like you knew that it was going to be a battle between Ferrari and Red Bull. So that's why for me in qualifying, it wasn't a surprise if I saw Ferrari up there in the top step. And it could have been either way. It could have been Leclerc or Sainz, but Sainz was struggling as well. And he even said it in the post-race interviews afterwards. So the only one that really looked comfortable in that car was Leclerc. And Max, forget about it, was killing it in testing, was killing it in the practices. So I already knew, like, my feeling was going into qualifying that it was going to be between Leclerc and Max.
You were solid.
Yeah, because I saw how those cars were running. And again, we've seen enough of testing to see when Mercedes, especially when that car is running good, and that car just does not look good, and we saw it this weekend. It's just not that good right now. And
Well, in the race, we actually saw,
honestly, credit to Mercedes that they at least still have the third fastest car, because that car looks horrible.
It was 7/10 down from Charles Leclerc's final. That Lewis Hamilton.
And that was
7/10
probably,
down.
and honestly, if it was only 7/10 down, it's because it was Lewis that was driving the car.
Well, he was carrying the car himself and
Yeah.
running down the road.
George Russell was almost 1 full second behind Lewis Hamilton, to your point. I think, to me, the most surprising thing were the next two finishers behind Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas, his former teammate.
He just said that. What?
Dude, crazy. Sixth, and then Kevin Magnussen.
Can you imagine if he had said that?
Kevin Magnussen, 7th. Right, if you had said that even last week, you would be like, yo, shut up, get out of here. Crazy. Like, I just... It's amazing.
I don't know why.
What new qualification?
Talking about Bottas. Bottas is my boy too, bro.
Come on.
Yo, remember when I was saying, yo, Bottas is not that bad, and you guys were making fun of me, posting pictures of Yhancy laughing at me? Remember that?
It's Bottas.
How the tables turn, or how the turntables. All right, so on to the race itself. We just talked about it. So Leclerc and Max front row, Sainz and Perez second row, Ham and Bottas third row, and then on and on and on, right?
Ham and Bottas third. That's so crazy.
So
Two different teams.
Yeah.
Guys, two different teams.
Bottas split the Mercedes.
That's
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, Bottas and Meg split the Mercedes. But let's just get it out there. The victor of this race, Charles Leclerc.
Charlie! I lost my voice again.
Victor of the race, Charles Leclerc. His teammate, Carlos Sainz.
That's the one.
Second place, Mr. Consistency last year, just plugging away. He didn't really even have a great race. Didn't have a great qualifying. But he was just there.
Yeah, he didn't have a good race at all, and then to his admission, but
He wasn't happy at all through the whole race. And
Nah, but-
you could see it in his face.
listen, to come out with second place, that's what Carlos Sainz does, man. The guy just stays in a position where he can take advantage if anything happens up ahead.
He's never going to let his teammate get ahead. And this has just kind of always been the case with him. He's always going to be right there with his teammate, right? No matter who it is.
I hope that changes.
It's crazy.
I'm rooting for him.
He will. He will.
Dude,
He will.
based on last year, I think that it will change.
He will. He just hasn't gotten to grips with the car, but that's usually the way Sainz usually works. It takes him a little bit of time to get used to it, but then he comes on. Like, watch him like third, fourth, to fifth race. Watch him come back, and it's going to be a battle between him and Leclerc. And that's only going to be good for Ferrari. Hopefully they're not going to be taking points off of each other. And that's going to be where Bernardo comes in and, manages the team if the car stays good. Because honestly, one caveat that we have to put in, these are new rules. And it's going to be a high rate of development. That's why I'm not counting Mercedes out.
Exactly.
That's why I'm not counting Red Bull out, because Red Bull fixed their problems. They're a good team. And Red Bull's car is super quick, too.
Yeah.
So you don't know how the balance of power is going to be throughout the season. And again, this is not like last year where you're putting freezes on like development. You're free to develop the car as you want. The only thing you can't really freeze, the only thing you can't really develop is the engine, because obviously there's a freeze on the engine.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as aerodynamic, dude,
Open market.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be a crazy rate of development, but it's also gonna be hindered because you still have a cost cap.
That's
Yeah.
Okay, but how much? Okay,
But
you're
as
working
far
within
as
the
like,
cost cap,
yeah, but as
last
far,
year,
but as far as like early season, you're gonna see a crazy rate of development and putting new parts in the car.
I can't wait.
Especially those teams at the top, because they're trying to beat each other. That's why I'm not counting Mercedes out. Mercedes. Last year they showed that it wasn't as big as a problem that they have in this year, because the car was still good last year. But they came back and they won the Constructors' Championship when Red Bull was mostly in the lead most of the year, and they almost won the Drivers' Championship. So if Mercedes can get on top of their problems, if it's not like a super crazy fundamental problem with the car, you're gonna see Lewis Hamilton and George Russell up there competing with Ferrari and Red Bull.
So I got a little curiosity. So let's say that they come to the point that the radical change to the side pods and stuff like that that's not working. Are they able to go back to like change the car that way?
They can do whatever they want.
As long as it's before Park for May, I don't see why not, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
They can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want. It's just
Within
a
the
matter
rules.
of
Within the rules.
But again, they can't throw the kitchen sink at it like before. They just can't.
money-wise.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason for, or part of the reason for
And
that
aerodynamics,
is exactly,
they don't have the,
Yeah.
they're
they don't have-
restricted on their CFD and their wind tunnel time,
Mhm.
which is a
Jeez.
penalty that they took for.
Which,
coming in first.
if they're in third, will benefit them and halfway through the season, because then the CFD time switch to whatever the standings are halfway through the season.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speak of the devil, Lewis Hamilton pulls out a miracle third place, but we'll get to that. A miracle podium. We'll get to that. The race itself, dude, I gotta say, Leclerc pulled out to such a quick. It was like watching Lewis Hamilton in that car. He just pulled out to such a quick lead and just dusted everybody. He was just gone.
Yes.
I don't recall literally anybody else doing something like that other than Lewis Hamilton himself.
No,
In the past
Verstappen
couple
did it
years,
a few. Verstappen did it a lot last year, actually.
Okay.
Meaning that no, like
where he left
that-
Hamilton in the dust?
not by far, but we've always said that when Verstappen takes the lead, he opens a lead.
Yeah.
So so we have to give him credit. Verstappen goes in front, he's going to open a lead. So yeah, Verstappen does it. Obviously we're so used to Mercedes being so far out. Once they just get some clean air,
Yeah.
that's probably what we should.
And I
do
also
that with.
think that the fact that they could follow. I mean,
Yes, that's
it wasn't a crazy he pulled out to a 3 or 4 second lead,
at the beginning. Yeah.
but it wasn't like an 8 or 9 second lead that you used to see back in the day, before this season.
Right.
But I mean, like I said, Leclerc didn't, like you said and I said, Leclerc didn't put a foot wrong. You know,
Yeah, what?
he
didn't put a foot wrong.
No, he didn't. No.
Yeah, I mean, and
Even to the point that you guys said earlier that he actually was slowing down in the first turn, so he'll be able to take, pass me, so I could pass you when I get DRS right after this turn. Like, that's crazy. Like, why would you even take? I mean, just us here from outside. Like, I wouldn't take that.
I'll tell you
Screw
what,
that. This is Max Verstappen that we're here. Nah.
yeah, but
Right? Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't.
no,
do that.
I got you, but it just shows you how confident he is.
So is that why? Because he was slowing down. Is that why it looked kind of like Verstappen was like sending it in, like just full send to just overtake him on that turn?
Well, I think
You notice that was
Yeah.
like
as the race,
to the actual turn, Verstappen was coming so quick, but it was because also Leclerc was slowing down that it looked like he was just sending like, okay, I'm gonna take it regardless.
there's a few things there.
And the sparks they didn't end this week.
Yeah, well, that's because of the purposing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then not all the teams are struggling, but there's a few things there, right? They as the race went on, you would see that the Ferrari was the quicker car this weekend. Red Bull wasn't far behind. The only way that, and we've seen this throughout the years, the only way if you're not on the pace, if you're in second place and you're not necessarily on the pace, if you get a chance to overtake a car, the first place car, you can if you're not that much slower than the car than the fastest car, you can overtake and keep the lead, because obviously if you're in clear air, obviously the car cools down better. You're not wasting your tires as much. There's a lot of things that go in your favor if you're in the lead. So if Max would have pulled off the undercut, which he tried 2 times, and obviously the first time was more successful than the second time. If he would have pulled it off, it probably would have been a different story. But we don't know that for sure because the Ferrari was a faster car. Was the faster car this weekend. Faster than the Red Bull, I would say. Because the Red Bull also had a ton of problems going with the brake heating. Obviously, the problems
When you
with
say
that.
faster as far as speed?
Pace.
Okay.
Pace.
Faster around the track.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for clarifying that because I wanted
Yeah,
to, I wanted
not
to make
necessarily.
sure.
Yeah, faster.
Not the top speed.
Around the track, not top speed.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the top speed on the straight doesn't necessarily define your speed around the track.
Yeah.
Because the Ferraris were quicker through sector 2 and 3, meaning that they're faster through the corners.
Yeah, sometimes they have that. It looks like
Yeah.
Ferrari, where
They have a better balanced
the
car.
balance they had this weekend was better with their aerodynamics overall. That
Mm-hmm.
helped them so much. And obviously, they did not have the faster speed, but they were able to maintain there. They were not far.
No, they weren't.
Verstappen
far.
was not leaving him in the dust.
No, they weren't far.
But
But
that
it
battle was beautiful.
But
So yeah, let's talk about the battle
Mhm.
if we can. We saw over the course of numerous laps on the start-finish straight. What we saw was Max Verstappen overtaking Charles Leclerc at the end, heading into turn 1, hitting that hairpin, and then literally right back after buzzing through. It
was like the
it's
turn 1-2
modified,
complex.
yeah, modified like S turns and then into like another straight where then Leclerc overtakes Verstappen. This happened for multiple laps without killing the tires. They came in at pretty much the same intervals as people that were not fighting each other like they were. And we saw that the cars were able to follow and maintain short gaps where they weren't affected as much by the dirty air through. I thought that I was very impressed. Granted, the Ferrari was better in Sector 2 all around, but I was very impressed that he was able to still follow Verstappen through Sector 2, pretty much staying within that dirty air, I guess, window.
Vice versa too, both of them.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, it just shows you how good the racing can be when the driver behind is not only fighting the car in front of him, but fighting the dirty air that's behind him, or that's in front of him from the car in front. But that battle between Max and Leclerc was great, because what's happening there is that Leclerc, and this is just like the levels of, like, we wouldn't think of it because you're in the heat of battle, you're going like 200 miles an hour, and it's amazing what these drivers can compute in their head while they're driving and battling each other. But for Leclerc knew that he was not faster than the Red Bulls in the straight. So if he lets Max, if he keeps Max behind him through that 1-2 complex, Max gets another shot at DRS in that next straight afterwards. And if he passes him on that straight, Max can keep the lead easier because you're heading into Sector 2 where there's more turns and it's not easy, and it's not as easy to follow, and you can't overtake there. So what Leclerc was doing was that he was letting Max overtake him in the part of the track where Max was clearly fastest, making sure that he slipped them behind him in that turn 2 where he can where he can get the DRS close enough where he can get the DRS for the next DRS zone, and then pass him there. Max tried to pass him there. Max passed him there twice. He did it again, and Leclerc did it twice to him, and was able to keep the lead going into Sector 2 where there's more twisty tight corners.
It's harder to pass.
Where he can extend, where Leclerc can extend the lead a bit to the point where finally he was able to get more than a second ahead of him, where Max wasn't able to get DRS once he gets into that start-finish straight. It was masterful driving on Leclerc's part.
On both.
Yeah. And on both. Yeah, but it you can see that Verstappen was, obviously he knew that he didn't have unlimited chances to pass him.
Correct.
So he was getting a little bit, a little bit desperate and antsy to get him. Leclerc just kept calm, cool, and collected, and was able to keep the lead regardless of, the attempted undercut on him, which ultimately won him the race.
What I like about the battle more was clean, super clean between both drivers. And I think the battle probably would have kept on a little more if Verstappen on the third try, he didn't have the big lockup that he had. Because that affected his
absolutely.
time.
Yeah,
But that's all a matter
But I was
of
expecting
keeping it cool.
I was expecting that from the first time. Because remember, we're used to the cars that you can't follow. You have to, you lose a lot of downforce when you're so close. So every time they're going back and forth, that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting for somebody to overshot a turn because they can't keep up. They're gonna. Well, what I was saying that Magnussen was doing when he started struggling a little bit at the beginning of the race, that he started overdriving the car.
Magnussen.
Yeah. So pretty much, I was expecting that between Charles and Max for one of them to overdrive the car, which ended up happening. What Max did when he had the lockup. But I was expecting it to happen sooner, which is normally what we are used to seeing.
Right.
And because that didn't come, it just kept hyping it up even more to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
It's a battle that went on for 3 or 4 laps.
Yep. And it was crazy.
And that's something that you barely see, man.
And the bar was going nuts.
Yeah,
everybody was, oh my God.
So listen, this was...
You know what that reminded me? It reminded me, and this is going back to like the early days of the pandemic when we were in lockdown. I remember that there was a virtual Grand Prix between, I think it was
Albon.
It was Albon,
Albon
and George.
Leclerc.
And Leclerc.
It was
Yeah,
George,
no,
George.
yeah, no, it was Albon and Leclerc,
Okay.
and they kept passing each
that
other
was so
every
good.
other lap.
Yes.
But
That was
obviously,
so
it's a
good.
video game.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
this is now happening in real life,
Yes.
and it's like, all right, if we can see this every weekend, bro, we're gonna be
glued.
super happy.
Yeah. And we're going to be more glued because we're
Yeah.
already glued to it.
So listen, I think I said it Saturday. This is kind of what we're looking for, right? We saw a little glimpse of it in 2019 in Austria and in Silverstone, where Leclerc and Max came together. Basically, they were pushing each other, elbows were out, and it was like, holy crap, this could be the future of F1 for a decade to come.
Yeah.
If they can make this work, and if they can keep it clean and not lose their heads, then we could see really something special this year with then the greatest driver of all time biting at their heels.
Yep.
I think that's going to be interesting. I thought what was really interesting to me was you saw a little bit of kind of, you know how Lewis Hamilton is like very cautious when he drives.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I saw a little bit of that from Max this weekend. I thought that he, even though it was close racing, it wasn't like Max Verstappen style close racing. I thought that
I saw the rage.
no, it was more
Like the road
respectful.
rage?
I don't know if road rage is the right term, but it was more respectful than what we saw at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that it is recognition that every point counts and that you need to stay in the race. Granted, that didn't end up happening for him, but that was not, his fault. But I was very impressed on both ends and seeing both drivers drive very, very clean and very, very respectable races.
I think that
I think there was only one person missing there.
to that point though, it's there's two things. One, that Leclerc and Verstappen obviously know each other very well through the junior categories and even through karting. So they've raced.
That's why I said there was one person missing there, Lando Norris.
Yeah.
Because he's also had a couple of battles with Leclerc.
So and Leclerc mentioned this in his interviews after the race. Yeah, it was hard racing, but he likes it and he's used to it, especially with Max. I think what you saw last year with Max and Lewis is just the clash of driving styles, and that one of them didn't want to give each other an inch, so you're gonna have that. Lewis can adapt because Lewis is obviously not a 7-time world championship, but he couldn't adapt. That's what makes him such a great driver. But the reason why they clash so much is that Lewis kept driving his way and trying to avoid and being careful, and Max was just straight up aggressive. I think what you saw here was two drivers being super aggressive from the beginning, because you even saw how Leclerc just cut into the inside,
Which was crazy.
yeah, to just cut into the inside,
Ahead of
just to
turn
cut.
one.
I heard of turn one at the beginning, at the start of the race. Leclerc can drive aggressive if he wants to, and he learned that lesson. I think it was in Austria when they battled
2019, yeah.
in 2019, where Max took away the victory from Leclerc, and he said, "All right, no problem. I can drive that way too." But they're used to each other. They know each other, and if both drivers are driving that way, they know they're going to be aggressive. Then you can definitely drive and keep it clean. It comes close to the edge, but that's fun to see.
And the cars are helping.
Yeah, and as long as you're not crashing into each other, let's do
The
it.
new regulations are helping to that.
And I think Lewis is coming in with the same mindset, because Lewis said in an interview before the weekend started, he said, "Yes, I'm definitely going to be driving more aggressive, because that's the way a lot of these drivers now drive." So he's going to adapt to his style, and I think you'll see Lewis, doing that as well. But I remember seeing Peter Windsor on YouTube. During the course of the weekend, and just saying that, it was on the Race podcast, where Lewis is very good.
Which is a good podcast, but not as good as this one.
No, not
Of
at
course.
all. But whatever.
Okay.
Lewis is very good at taking it just to that point when you're racing, like just right on the edge. And it be okay and not like egregious. He does that all the time. He does that in his interviews. He does that the way he drives. He can push you to that limit.
Right.
And that's what frustrated Nico Rosberg so much, because he can push it to the limit, and everybody was like, "Yo, Nico, you're whatever. And Lewis is like, yeah, he's the greatest of all time. And obviously
Right.
that'll frustrate you because
Right.
it's like, yo, I'm trying to fight this guy and I'm
Right.
looking like a complete ass.
And
you
Lewis
know?
will be like, "Oh, I did that.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know."
no,
And it's
yeah,
like, "Shut
exactly.
up."
Lewis is so good at that. So
Clean cut.
Yeah.
yeah, it's it's a crazy dynamic. But I think when I'm hoping to see a 3-way fight between Hamilton, Leclerc, and Verstappen. I think those are the 3 premier drivers on the grid right now.
So
That are driving lights out.
speaking of battles, we saw rookie driver Zhou Guanyu versus everybody.
How do you say his name, man?
Zhou Guanyu.
No, he's not French.
No. Chinese driver, rookie driver, Alfa Romeo driver, Valtteri Bottas' teammate. China versus the world, or Zhou Guanyu versus the world? We saw him, literally, I think I saw him fight everybody during this race. And
Yeah.
bravo, TV director.
He did.
Yes. Finally.
You can still hit it. Yeah, they did a great, for the most part,
For
they
some
did a
part,
great
because
job.
some part we
There were
wanted to
some
kill him.
areas that, yeah. But I applaud them, even though it was the back of the pack. They were showing battles that were great battles,
Yes.
but they were just in the back of the pack. So great job. The new regime seems to be doing well so far. But what did you guys think about the back of the pack battles in general?
It was great, and that's what we have to see. I think obviously when you watch F1, and for those new fans,
But then the battles were not really in the back. Well, kind
no, but they're everywhere.
Because the back was the
Well,
Mercedes cars. Every
Listen,
Mercedes
one thing that
customers.
I've noticed, we're fairly new fans. I mean, we've been fans since 2017. We're following it closely since 2017. You've been following it way before us.
You calling me old again? Go ahead.
Yes, I am. The beauty of Formula One is that obviously you have the battle at the front, but not everybody's able to compete for number one. So then in turn, what happens is that you have little battles towards the back of the grid. Last year, obviously, it was between Mercedes and Red Bull at the front. But then at the back, you had another battle between Ferrari and McLaren, and who was going to get third place in the Constructors' Championship. And then obviously you have the inter-team battles between the 2 drivers, which you look at that. Then you have further back, you had another battle between AlphaTauri and Alpine. And there's just little battle. Even at the back of the grid, you had a battle between Alfa Romeo. We're talking about last year, Alfa Romeo and Williams. I mean, Alfa Romeo and Williams, and then obviously Haas was nowhere. But if you're a fan and you're tuning into F1, and if you see Drive to Survive as the same thing, you'll notice that you don't necessarily have to fight at the front to be in a battle with another team.
Yes.
And these are the battles that it's like almost like a soap opera with different storylines. You're gonna get to see this throughout the year and the pecking order of how it goes, and then you're gonna see obviously who's gonna come out on top, because in the Constructors' Championship, if you come out one place ahead of another team, you're getting millions of dollars to put into the car next year.
Yep.
So it was good to see those battles, because obviously anybody who's an F1 fan wants to see that, because we barely see that, and we want to see overtaking, and we want to see battles. The TV director does a horrible job of doing that, has done a horrible job throughout the years of doing that. The fact that they did show it, and the fact that the cars are able to follow a little bit more closely, is great. It's great for the sport, but it's great for fans, because we want to see that kind of action.
In every race, do we always have the same race director? I mean, the rain
TV director.
TV director.
TV director, I'm not sure.
No, there's a big competition for that guy to be canned next.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because like you see, Monaco has their own.
No, I
TV.
just saying, like,
Why do you want to get people fired for, bro?
All right, so
Don't
Do a
mess
better
with
job.
nobody's livelihood, Ruben.
we're running a little long, so let's move on. Ferrari works team, Ferrari engine customers, all of a sudden springing forward. So Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz won 1 and 2, right? Kevin Magnussen 5th in the Haas with the Ferrari.
in a Haas?
Valtteri Bottas 6th. This is race results in the Alfa Romeo or the Ferrari engine. Then you scroll down, you get Zhou Guanyu 10th with the other Alfa Romeo. Mick Schumacher 11th. Should have been almost in the points, but was spun out by Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
Then we see the back of the pack, right? Obviously, the guys that were eliminated, Pierre Gasly, Max Verstappen, and Sergio Perez for their various issues. Nico Hulkenberg, Aston Martin, Aramco, Mercedes. Nicholas Latifi, Williams, Mercedes. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, McLaren, Mercedes. Alex Albon in the Williams. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, Mercedes. So 12 through 17. Literally the guys that didn't get eliminated, all Mercedes customers.
Eliminate.
Retire.
Retire.
I'm thinking Squid Game, I'm sorry. Get out.
You're dead.
Yeah. So one is,
Like somebody comes and just pops your tire, you're gone. Go.
is this something to expect going forward, or is it just kind of first race kind of things kind of shaking out a little bit weird?
Mercedes engines were struggling with overheating this race. You see if you see the comments from McLaren, especially Norris and Ricardo, they're saying that they were just trying to keep the engine cool to finish the race. And it seems like that was the same thing with the
With the rest.
Yeah. So that seems to be an issue. We know historically that Mercedes engine, as good as it is, if it runs hot, it could be a problem. And we've seen that happen to them in the past before. Now, the other thing that you got to keep in mind, too, is that they're using that new fuel, the 10% ethanol fuel. That fuel tends to run hot, especially, I think, especially when low fuel runs. When the fuel is getting low, it tends to run hotter than usual. So maybe that's something that Mercedes has to fix with their engine as well. I mean, it seems like Mercedes is getting hit with a whole bunch of stuff. The only Mercedes engine team that was able to finish with a decent result, and that's only because Red Bull popped out. I mean, they clanked out. Was the works team.
Yeah.
So
Hamilton and Mercedes,
Yeah.
Hamilton and George Russell themselves.
So that's a storyline that we're going to have to follow throughout the season to see how Mercedes can mitigate that. Obviously, the engine was frozen. So they're going to have to fix that.
So maybe next weekend, the engine probably not going to give them that much problems, but
But
they
remember,
don't have the car for it.
listen, it's the spring. Summer, it gets hot. We'll see
But it was
how-
also Bahrain, and it'll be
Oh,
Saudi
that's
Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but going forward, it's gonna be hotter
gonna
weather
get
into
hotter.
the summer.
So I mean, the way I
And
see
we'll see how it works out in Saudi Arabia as well.
the way I see it is that. So do we agree that Mercedes and their customers have an engine problem,
I think so. That's what it showed this week.
right?
That's what it shows. Yeah.
We saw different takes on the aero, but ultimately all of them.
Yeah, as
the
far
data
as,
shows.
Yeah, if you're again, you have 6 cars running Mercedes engines. 4 out of the 6 that are customer teams are running at the back of the pack
And by a lot.
by a lot. Actually, let me see.
They got a lap on everything.
No, actually, was it 6? Is it 6? No, you have 8 cars running Mercedes engines.
Yeah, the Williams, the Aston Martin, the Works team, and the McLaren.
Yeah, and again, 18, 19, 19th, and 20th are all Red Bull engines, and we know that was something else that happened. If they didn't drop out of the race, all the Mercedes customer teams would be last.
Would have been last. So here's why I'm not concerned. Last year, all of a sudden, what was it, Brazil? You see a monster engine on
Yeah,
Lewis
with
Hamilton,
steroids.
a freaking rocket on Lewis Hamilton's car. I think that Mercedes in general, they tend to play very conservative with the potency or whatever they're doing with their engine. They turn it down for reliability. We've known them to be a very reliable engine throughout the years. We saw them just bang out a bunch of issues with Valtteri Bottas's car last year through cycling through a bunch of engines to be able to give Hamilton a chance to win the championship. I don't see this being an issue that they can't overcome over the course of the season, and I would bet you that it gets fixed sooner rather than later. Probably not for Saudi Arabia because there's still going to be airflow problems, but definitely by the time you get to Barcelona and you get to Monaco, whatever, it's not going to count because it's not engine dominant. But any other race around it that, Canada, whatever engine dominant races, I feel like you'll see them bounce back.
I'm not disagreeing with that. It's because it's Mercedes. Like,
They'll just turn the engine up.
Yeah, but last year you saw a very dominant engine at the end of the season, but remember that they had to replace their engine a whole ton of times in order to get a fresh
they all did.
engine at the end.
Yeah, and
Other
guess what?
teams-
George Russell is going to suffer.
No, but what I'm saying is that
obviously Mercedes did it more than
and then the
Red Bull, but
reason
Red Bull did
and
as
the
well.
reason for that was that obviously when that Mercedes engine starts degrading, it just goes really bad really quick. The fact that you're having problems in the first race is a cause for concern.
But you're not having problems. It's just slow.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not.
Well, it's slow because they have to cool.
It's not Red Bull problems.
It's not the problems of the engine is malfunctioning. Is what I'm saying.
Well, it's running hot.
Exactly. But it's not the same problems as you're cycling through all
Or
the
like
engines.
it's running hot, like always. It's not meant to follow. It's meant to lead.
Right.
So
No, that could be it.
I mean, I think we commented that when they were coming down the straight, you could see the guys pulling out away from the toe so that they could get more air within those cooling ducts. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to see that Ferrari engines are back so that we have a more competitive pack. I also don't think that it's that I don't think that it's that the Mercedes cars are slow. I just think that they're the slowest. You get what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah,
Right? Like it's not as fatally bad as it was for
and it could be a lot of other things too. It's not necessarily just the engine.
correct.
It could be.
a combination
We saw like for example, obviously Williams they're just slow because obviously they're starting from way behind, and we saw they've been behind for the last 2 or 3 years already. With McLaren, their issues have been the brake ducts. They had to change their brake ducts to be a bigger duct, and obviously that's also the brake ducts is also part of their aerodynamics. So if they change it, it messes up their whole aerodynamics with the air going to the back of the car. So that could be a problem as well. So you do that with the overheating brakes and an engine that you have to keep cool. It's just like you just can't run the car
And the bouncing.
efficiently. Yeah,
And the
well,
bouncing. Like
well, they
that's another one.
actually had a better handle on the purposing because they were able to create
I think
better vortices on the side to close
the floor.
the floor. I don't think that was their main problem. I think it's just
Part
that the entire car's overheating. You can't run it as quick as you can. So it could be a lot of different things going on. The Aston Martin doesn't seem to be a very good car either.
And the McLaren.
Yeah. So I mean, there could be so many different things going on there. It's not going to be the engines, but yeah, you were talking
it's a
about
nice
McLaren.
livery though.
Which one?
The McLaren.
I thought the Aston looks better, but go ahead.
No, McLaren. Well, I mean, in all honesty, it's not even a story about McLaren. They just happen to be the worst of the customer teams. So
Yeah.
I foresee Mercedes being able to fix it for themselves. I don't really foresee a lot of hope for their customer teams unless they throw a ton of money into understanding what's going on.
Yeah. But McLaren looked really bad this weekend.
Yeah. Kind of weird to see Lando Norris that far
That's
back.
what,
But I'm used to Daniel Ricciardo being back there.
yeah.
Kind of
That's what I was
crazy.
saying earlier.
That sucks
there was, like,
too, man.
right?
Because it's like,
Kind of crazy to hear that.
because honestly, we would peg them as one of the best driver lineups on the grid, and honestly, their comeback story, considering from the McLaren Honda days to now, was like McLaren is finally getting back to their rightful spot in F1, which is fighting towards the top, front of the midfield, getting that momentum, and then fighting for wins and podiums. And we saw such an ascension last year for them to be so behind, basically being almost like the last place cars on the grid besides Williams. It sucks, man. I'm hoping that they can claw back, and hopefully they got a handle on their issues, but they ain't looking good for them.
We need Mando up front again because remember he has awesome starts.
Last lap, Lando. All right, and real quick because we do still have to talk about Saudi Arabia. K-Mag, what a performance from him. To me, that should have been, that was driver of the day.
Yeah.
Right? Between him and Lewis. We see K-Mag, we see K-Mag, we see Hulk at times outdrive Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg, and we also saw Alex Albon at times outdrive Nicholas Latifi. There's a lot of talent that washes through Formula One that maybe shouldn't even wash through. These guys, the politics of it, I just wish that some of these really talented dudes, like we've seen it with Alex Albon, right? We've seen it with K-Mag. Race winner, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yep.
No.
He didn't win with McLaren back then?
No, he got a podium, but he didn't win.
Okay.
Yeah.
And never been on the podium, Nico Hulkenberg, but all he needed was a car. And, he definitely deserves a drive over Lance Stroll, right?
Yeah.
I would say, if it wasn't the first time in the car this weekend, maybe you would have seen a better result for him. But I think that, I don't know, it's amazing to see the return of the Mag and the return of all these other drivers that are showing, hey, look, maybe I deserve a shot.
Ocon as well.
Esteban Ocon, yeah, last year.
Came back and he's still fighting.
Tell you what, if Mazepin was in that car, we wouldn't be talking about Haas this weekend at all.
That's exactly right.
At all. We wouldn't.
Hey, at one point I was expecting for Haas to mess up somewhere, like it happened that time in Australia.
The pit stop. Or
And now
Like, I
we
was
can
expecting
see.
that, like-
And now let me tell you something. Now, and a lot of people have said this, and it's true. Now we're gonna see what Mick Schumacher's made out of. We're gonna see how good he is, because you have a driver with experience that's his teammate. That's experience that has proven that he can get a podium if he gets it. Has proven that he can come in straight out of IMSA,
And a
get
car
into
that he's
an
never
F1
driven
car
before.
that he'd never driven before,
And look where he put it at.
and look where he put it at. And he was doing super quick times in testing when he was able to test the car. So, hey man,
Sometimes
Haas?
you need a little push.
Haas is gonna be a team to watch, man. I'm glad they're finally moving in the right direction. Hopefully they don't do what they did the previous years, that they fall back, which has happened with them before. But they have a good engine.
New year.
It seems
new
like
Haas.
they definitely got more than enough development time in the wind tunnel. I'm excited to see what happens.
New year, new Haas.
Yeah, man. Hey,
just don't smash the door.
Yep.
All right, so I mean, those are our thoughts on the race. Saudi Arabia coming up next week, this coming Sunday, a 1 p.m. race in the Eastern Standard Time. So we saw this track last season, late in the season, second to last race in the season. Remember, that was double red flags, right? That's where Esteban Ocon was out in the lead, and Max passed, I think, Lewis on the outside. He had to get the turn. Actually, I think the second to last episode of Drive to Survive, they focused heavily on that race. It was definitely watch it. It was a very eventful race, and I expect another very, very eventful race. I think that we're going to see some of the growing pains of this car. What?
No, the same thing when you were mentioning Ocon, I thought you were going to mention towards the end of the race when he goes, no, and Bottas overtakes him.
Bottas overtook him.
And Bottas goes, yes.
Bottas overtook him in the last lap.
The last corner.
To get the podium.
Poor Ocon.
Hey, so last year in Saudi Arabia, we saw the Monster engine on it's a fast track, but it's a tight track. We saw the Monster engine on the Mercedes, so they were 1-2 in qualifying. Max was third in the qualifying. It was literally within a tenth of a second for the top three.
Oh, Max was third only because he crashed the car.
Yeah, because
He
he
hit
would have
the
taken
wall.
pole.
He was
going to put
I
in a
can't wait for
legendary lap.
another lap like that. Him going for laps like that.
Like, Lewis had a crazy lap to just get pole position, and then Max wasn't even on a better lap.
Yep.
So you were gonna have like literally two magical laps and one, but Verstappen.
To me, here's the interesting one. Last year qualifying, Charles Leclerc was fourth, right, ahead of Sergio Perez, ahead of Lando Norris, ahead of
This
Pierre
year.
Gasly. So I think that bodes really well for him and for Ferrari this year. The race classification, how it finished, it it's hard to really be able to say, oh, this was a race that just kind of played out the way it was supposed to. No, because it was just
A lot of events.
it was a disaster in some ways. Lewis Hamilton first, Max second, Valtteri Bottas third, Esteban Ocon fourth, which is what you just talked about. Daniel Ricciardo fifth, sixth Gasly, seventh and eighth Leclerc and Sainz. So I'm leading into that, and I feel like I'm leading the witnesses here. Predictions. I feel like we see the continuation of Ferrari just doing well. One, because it's so close together time-wise, and so close together geographically. So you'll have similar weather, similar conditions in that sense, right? It's a fast track. And there's not going to be a lot of room for passing.
Yeah, there's only like maybe two spots on the whole track that you can pass from.
So I think that Leclerc will pull out pole position, is my prediction. I think that it'll be just tough for him to get past after that by whoever's behind him. It doesn't even have to be Max. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think Max is going to be tough to beat in pole. If they ever show the little issue they had this weekend with the water pump or whatever,
Fuel pump.
the fuel
But
pump.
that was during the race.
No, I know, but I think Max will take it because they have a faster car, and it's a lot of straights here. Just because of that.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
As far as top speed, that's what I mean.
My top three are gonna be Max, Leclerc, and Sainz in qualifying.
Yeah.
I just think that the Red Bull is quicker on the straights, has a more powerful engine, which is gonna bode well. And obviously the Ferraris are very good through corners, but there's not a lot of corners on this track. There's a lot of weaving and waving, but I think the Red Bulls are just as good. So that's what I see. I see it's gonna be Max, Leclerc, and Max, Leclerc, and Sainz top three, and it'll be a battle between Max and Leclerc for the win.
How many red flags do we see? We saw
Two.
2 last time.
2 again.
2 again?
Yeah, I think so.
So
And that's what's going to help Ferrari win the race.
well, one thing that we didn't talk about was we saw Lewis Hamilton when he came out of his pit stops. He looked like he was driving on ice, right?
Yep.
Because he couldn't
With
get
the
the tires
with the hard
warmed up.
tires.
Mhm.
The hard tires
Did not
last
work.
race were just useless. If you drive like you're on ice in Saudi Arabia, you're gonna crash into a wall.
Yeah, and what they've done is that they've lowered the temperature on the tire warmers.
Yeah.
So if you don't get that right, you're gonna come out on on pretty slippery tires. So
Obviously, Lewis was one that was shown the most with it, but a lot of cars struggle at the beginning when they got the first tires too.
yeah, and
The
it's
tire was-
and it's newer.
I think Max too is a struggle with it.
It's newer tarmac too, so it's not as abrasive as Bahrain. It's very slippery, so I mean, you're probably gonna see like the softest tires, like they do in Monaco. I don't know what the tires are gonna be, but it'll be interesting. It'll be a good race,
So-
but I think it's still gonna be between if nothing crazy happens.
So race predictions for you again. Who takes it?
Max. I think it'll stay the top three will stay the same as qualifying.
How about you, Hans?
I think Max will take the win. I think there was a little bit, just me thinking whatever sideways. I think there was a little bit of, okay, I don't have to take this as seriously because Lewis and Mercedes are back there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that now Red Bull is going to come loaded for bear for this race. So just based on what we saw this past week, I'll say Max, I'll say Charles Leclerc second, and I will say Lewis Hamilton rounding out the podium.
Wow.
Okay.
Jeez.
What Lewis Hamilton? What makes you think that?
That's why I say whoa.
So we've seen when the chips are down, Lewis Hamilton pull out great races, great drives, right? So I think that in this case, Mercedes just needs points. I think that we've seen him drive around when he doesn't even have the best car. We've seen him drive around Singapore, also a hot environment, closed-in track. We've seen him put out great laps, great races there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is going to be a similar situation in that sense, and I believe that Carlos Sainz will struggle a little bit. Even though I said that he'll qualify third, I think that he will struggle a little bit with race pace And I believe that at some point, it may not happen this week, but it'll be coming soon. Ferrari is going to be Ferrari. They're going to fuck up their strategy, and they're going to cost one of their drivers places. And I think that this is going to be that type of situation.
Fair enough.
It's easy to not mess up when you're not at the top or you're
Yeah.
not in
Yeah.
front.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it in 2019. We saw it in 2018 and 2017 where they had leads and they were close to being able to upset the current champions,
Mm-hmm.
and they bungled it. So that I think that the pressure of like, oh, we can actually do this may show up a little.
I'm hoping as a fan that their strategy gets just as good as their pit stop this weekend.
Yeah, I'm
Their-
hoping
their
that the
pit
momentum
stops
keeps
were-
going
Yeah,
because they were doing better pit
I've
timing than
Quicker.
Yeah, I've never seen Ferrari at the top with like a Red Bull or Williams or even a Mercedes as far as pit stops are concerned, and they impressed me this
This
past
weekend they were
in
doing.
Bahrain. So I think they only had like part of the reason why Max was able to come close to overtaking Leclerc was because they bungled that first stop with Leclerc. I think it was like a 3.5-second stop, but the next three stops were like all 2.5, 2.6 seconds. So,
especially the second stop where
Yeah.
Red Bull actually took way
Red-
longer.
Yeah, where Red Bull took longer. Yeah, I mean, Ferrari as a whole, as a team as a whole.
What did you call them? Ferrari as a whole? No.
Jesus, man, the hate is real.
Yep.
I expect it to get even more intense as the season goes on.
There's no hate.
But nah, man, Ferrari overall has really done a good job, and I'm hoping that they can keep the momentum going. We've gotten excited in 2017 and 2018 as Ferrari fans, and obviously, the middle of the season things just took a dive for the worse. So we're hoping that that the team can keep the momentum going. I'm excited though.
Ruben, what are your predictions?
No, it would be Charles Leclerc will win. Max will probably crash. So with Charles Leclerc. No, seriously. I think because of the red flags that I foresee happening, the two red flags that I call, it will be Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen.
Crashing into each other?
No, but it will be the race results will be Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen. I would say Carlos Sainz third, Lewis fourth, because Lewis will definitely beat at least Sergio Perez.
Okay.
Remember, Sergio Perez last year was also one of the ones part of the crash, and I think he lost his front wing at one point. All that stuff. So he's always seems to be part of melees. Part of things when the action is happening. Perez
I think
is there.
we'll see how strong these cars are this weekend.
That's another thing too. How much of a pain can they take? Because we saw it with Ocon and Schumacher, where you would definitely lose a wing in the past.
Yeah, and the
Nothing
wing was
happened.
wider this season too, so you probably hit the wing first. And then
Nothing happened on the wing in that instance.
Very true.
That was the only one the only I guess you could say touch up that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, on that note, we'll wrap it up for this episode. Just make sure if you're watching on YouTube, drop a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, thumbs up, etc. Podcast platforms, we are on many of them. Please,
Especially your favorite, right? That's what
yes, especially your favorite podcast platform. Please leave a review if you can. Recommend us to a friend. Obviously, we're still trying to grow here. We're at Jump to Start F1 on Twitter and Instagram. And that's it. Jump to Start Racing Podcast, YouTube, and podcast platforms. That's pretty much it. Enjoy the race. It's race week.
Yes, sir.
New season.
Peace.
See you guys
Laters.
later.